inheritance planner, as an inheritance planner, one question, a fundamental question is, how many times would you want your family to pay inheritance tax on what you own? I imagine most of us own the houses in which we live. When we die and we leave it to our family, how many times would we want them to pay inheritance tax on it? Another way to put the question is, whom do you want to get your legacy when you are gone? Do you want it to go to, if you answer the question positively, say, I want it to go to my family or certain members of my family, that's all very well. If you don't answer the question positively, I can draw you the great big map. If you don't answer the question positively of whom do you want to inherit your wealth, be certain as X is X, it will end up in the hands of the government. And that is the path. It's probably a convoluted path, but the way to prevent that is to simply, by means of a will, write out whom you want to inherit from you. And as you can imagine, all wills are not born equal. Nothing in life is born equal. You have to make sure that your will is drafted properly to suit your circumstances. No two families are alike. I have been doing this for 3.5 decades. In all my time, absolutely no two families are alike. So it's just a matter of taking the time to articulate what you want to happen to your estate when you pass away, and you simply decide who gets what, or put another way, do you care who inherits your life's work when you are gone? So that is the essence of what I do. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask them as we go along. Okay.
Thank you.
What sort of things do?
Yeah, go on. Who was that?
I was going to say, what
Yes.
sort of things do you put in your will?
It's a question of, it's down to you. It's down to your individual as an individual. A will should be crafted so that it's easy to administer, so that your estate is easy to administer. You put anything that's relevant, that becomes a question of personal advice, and I can advise you personally on what to put in your will. What you should put in your will would be different from what I should put in my will. So it's a question of context and what's appropriate. But those are kind of questions that I can answer separately if you don't want to broadcast your affairs in public. I would happily talk to you separately about what you should put in your will, or more importantly, how you should write the will. How you write the will is a broader form of the question you're asking.
If you've got a will already made, excuse me.
Yes.
If you've got a will already made,
yes.
Can you change now that we've spoken to you?
Of course you can change it. A will that's not very well made is no good.
How do you know it's not well made?
I can speak to you personally. So before we look at your will, I will speak to you to say, what do you want to achieve?
Okay.
What do you want to achieve? Where are we? Where do you want to get to? And between you and me, we will draw that map, and then we will compare this map that we've drawn, this roadmap that we've drawn, to what you have in hand.
Okay.
If what you have in hand does what you want, then there is no sense in repeating what you have. It would be for you to decide that what you have doesn't quite capture the essence of your intentions. Because wills are not born equally.
So what about the price of wills? Are they expensive?
Expensive, nothing good is cheap, but the question is it good value for money? Definitely. Is it expensive? Expensive is a matter of opinion, but definitely it is good value. It will be good value. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in business.
Around how much would a will
Yeah,
cost?
thank
to
you,
be-
Ade. Leslie has a, okay, sorry.
Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, were you going to say something, Ade?
And then I was answering the question, but the question hasn't been asked.
Sorry,
So,
there was a question before you, Leslie. Just hold on, please.
Okay.
Someone had asked, what is the value of making a will? So I think what Ade was saying is that there is a value, there is a cost for something as important as that, but it's not fully based on the cost of a will. But I'm sure he has a standard and non-standard price that Ade could answer. Ade, if you'd like to answer that, that's
Yes,
fine. If you
please.
don't, we can move on to Leslie.
it's actually based on individual circumstances because of what you want to do, but that will be explained individually because it fits individual circumstances, because it's one of those things. Even recently, you wouldn't know what there is to be done until you've actually examined the case. You name a price and you say, oh my God, your requirements are different from what I thought it was. So that is something for individual examination.
Thank you. Leslie, you had a question?
Thank you, Shelley. Good afternoon, Ade.
Leslie, you're on mute.
Hello.
You're welcome.
Can you hear me?
We can hear Leslie.
I've
We can
taken
hear you.
myself
Yes, we
off
can.
mute. Okay. So my question is, each time you change a will, do you
Yes.
incur a charge? That's the first question. And the
Mhm.
second question is, do you suggest it's better to store a will in a specific place? I don't know where that is. Is that the bank or with somebody? Or do you think it's okay to have a will stored at home in a safe place where people can find it when the person becomes deceased?
The last bit of what you said is the answer to your question. It's where it can be found, wherever that is. Never in a bank. Banks don't tend to do those things anymore, except Metro, where you hire a safety deposit box, where you hire a box. I don't know that other banks do the safety other banks do safety deposit box, but the real answer is where it will be found. It's no point it not being found. That's a whole different palaver looking for wills. I get emails several times a week saying, do you know Mrs. Jones who lived at 13 Acacia Avenue? Did you ever hear of her? Did you write her will? No, no, no. If it were my will, you wouldn't be asking me. But there's a central service that asks that question. So it's a question of where it will be found. What I tell people, absolutely everybody, is this. What I tell people is this. So I'm not repeating myself. I'm saying what I tell people. Let the important people know that there is a will. Let them know what is in the will, and let them know where to find it. And storage can be, if I wrote a will, I can store it for you, for which I don't charge. I don't charge for storing a will. You can store it at the central, there's a central place where you store it in Kingsway. They charge £20 for the lifetime of it, or you can keep it safe in where your personal papers are kept. The only thing I would say though is to watch that you don't keep it in a safe to which no one can get to. That's that's one thing. And your first question was, when you update a will, do you incur a charge? With me, the answer is no. With me, if I write your will and we are not doing new things, so there might be something entirely new, like we're making a different kind of trust, or we are including new will for properties overseas or things like that, then that's something new entirely. But if it was your old will where you are changing things because you want to give Bobby 50% rather than 40%, or you've remarried, very important. If you remarry, you change your will, or things like that, or if you have a new grandchild or whatever else, then those changes are free. But they would take us longer to discuss than for me to make the change, because when we finish, I would say, Leslie, thank you very much. That's fine, no problem. There's no charge for that. Send me an email with those things that we've talked about so that I can copy and paste. I don't get the names, spell the names wrongly. So it takes longer for us to discuss than for me to do the work. It will cost me a stamp, and I think I can bear the cost of a stamp.
Wonderful.
How
Thank you so
often
much,
can you-
Ade. Sorry, Elsie, before I
Thank
come
you.
to both Elsie, so it's Claudette first, LCH, and then LCS. And who else had their hand up? And then Jay here in the center. So Claudette, over to you.
Yes, good afternoon, Adi. Thank you so much for pushing this program on for us, because it's well overdue, I would like to think. I just wanted
Thank
to
you.
ask you, the initial consultation, is there a cost for that, or is it included in all the service?
Let us speak differently, because I would, let's speak separately, please, to speak about specific costings, because I would like to speak to Shirley about a structure, any structure, whatever discounts we can work out, because I wouldn't, it will be unfair for me. It will be really unfair for me to slap you with my standard charge just now. So I would like to be able to work and arrange an arrangement out with the group and see what we can do.
Yes.
That would be good, yes.
And if what I'm thinking of is that the initial charge will be refunded if you went ahead, but I would like to formalize it.
Thank you.
I would like to formalize it properly.
Thank you, Claudette. LCH, and then LCS, and then Jay.
Yeah, 2 questions.
Yes.
Updating. How often can you update your will?
Every day.
Every day.
You do.
Oh,
It-
And do you have to pay once it's done professionally?
Oh, okay. Sorry,
I'm talking about professionally.
I think I understand your question now. I understand your question. Sorry. Yes, every day was facetious. But every day is the true answer. Every day is the true answer, because what you might have heard is something like update your will every 3 years or every 5 years. Or is that the sort of thing you were expecting me to say?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't like those calendar schedules, because a will is for your life. It's not for the calendar. Your will tells the people you leave behind, my things go to my people. And when the things in your life change, or when the people in your life change, that's when you change the will. So
Yeah.
if you have, yes.
What I was going to say, what about someone contesting the will? How do you deal with that?
The contesting a will, the art of a well-written will is one that is hard to contest. We cannot stop anybody from bringing a challenge to a will. But if it's well written, the chances of success will be very slim, very slight. And sometimes when a will is well written, that there are no good grounds for a contest. A contest requires you to go to a solicitor, and the solicitor would take the case on. And for them, it's a risk-based business. All businesses are risk-based businesses. So if the chance of success is slim, they'll say, sorry, mate, have a nice life. And that's the point of a well-written will. If you have a particular case in mind, naturally, I would be happy to speak to you about it. But a contest per se, there should be no good grounds for a contest. Or if you came to me with your case saying, Ade, I'd say, tell me about you. And you say, this is me, these are my circumstances, this is what I want to do. I would say, please stop there. Please consider that this would happen. And if you went ahead with this, I am not a betting man, but I would bet that this person we're talking about will bring a contest because of what we are doing now. So there are ways to relieve the possibility of a successful challenge. I know things happen in families and we want to leave people out. And two things, I come from a family and I've been doing this for many years. So I have seen all of similar circumstances to that which you might be thinking of. But the point of writing a will is to reduce the possibility of a successful challenge.
Thank you.
I don't know if that
Thank
answers
you,
your question.
Ade. Elsie Sutherland. Yeah.
Thank you, Adi, for explaining those things to me.
Elsie?
But sorry. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, clearly, yes.
We
Thank you
can.
again for coming and explaining these things to us, because some of us really, and from my experience and what you're saying, things are different as well. Some people goes to the W.H. Smiths and they buys their will and they make it themselves and get it signed.
Yes.
Yeah. The next social worker, I had problem with a couple of clients because as Elsie just said, how often, you just said every day. And I'm telling you, it do happen. Because if they fall out with one son, oh, you're not getting my will, so you could change it. So the solicitor all the time involved. I don't know how much it costs them because that's all I do is referral. I don't get involved. Regarding contesting will, because some people are still out there who wasn't mentioned in will, as someone talk about contested will. I'm listening for the answer correctly with that one. So thanks. Thank you.
Elsie, was that a question? The last bit?
No, just a thanks for listening for it. I'm listening for his wording now.
Oh, okay, I see.
Okay.
Over to you.
Okay. Again, the question of a contest. If someone says, I want to cut this person out, or I want to cut that person, this person out, or that person out, it's really something that I always urge people to think about. I always urge them to think about. You shouldn't. It's your money. In English law, you can leave your money to anybody, absolutely anybody. There is nothing stopping you from leaving your money to the cat's home. However, yes, if you then if you have 3 children and you only put 2 in your will, first of all, I would say, why are you putting only 2 in your will rather than 3? And sometimes there's some wills I do not write, very few, but if they're doing something that's really wrong, that would cause a fight, I don't want to be involved in a fight. Although I am relatively young in this group, I plan to work till my 70s and 80s, and I don't want to be spending my time in court. No, thank you very much. I don't want to be writing letters to lawyers and solicitors. So when I see something that's likely to result in a contest, I will guide you to avoid that contest. That's my job, to guide you, to help you to avoid that contest. And if you insist on doing something which will result in a contest, a good practitioner should resign himself from such a position, because after all, you shouldn't do something which your conscience tells you is no good. It's like me being a doctor, or like being a pilot, or even a bus driver. If it's too dangerous, say no.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ade. So we have Jay now with a question. You won't see Jay, but you'll hear her voice.
That's fine.
Ade, how much do you charge for writing the wills?
Like I said, a bit earlier that I will work out a charging structure for the entire group. And it's a question of what you want to do, but I'll work out in a charging structure so that I can incorporate a discount.
Ade also, thank you. Ade, there was another question that Jay was asking, which was, what's an example of a will? What would that roughly look like?
That's like a bit like saying, what does a person look like, or what does a car look like?
Okay.
It's really, this is me, I am this person, and these are the people in my life, and I want my things to go to those people in this order. That's what a will is.
Thank you for that.
So I can, if you want an example of a document, it can go from 1 page, which is very rare, to typically 14, 15, 20 pages. But it really is, this is me, my things, these are my things, and I want my things to go to my people, and that's it. And then there are lots of technical things like executors and trustees and rules and conditions, but those 3 elements are the important things.
Okay, thank you, Ade. So we have Paulette. Paulette, over to you.
Yeah, hi. Just wanted to find out whether if you had money in your bank account
Yes.
and you make that will, is that as straightforward as making that will to take the money from the bank, or is there another issue around that?
Sorry, I don't quite understand the question. So if we have a bank account, is the bank account the only asset, or one of
If that
several
is,
assets?
if it is the only assets, your money in the bank.
Okay. So if the bank account is the only asset, I would still say all my property. The general form of my wills is all my property. I tend not to mention bank accounts because a bank account is, by definition, account number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 at bank XYZ. Now, the problem is that if we write account number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in a piece of paper, for whatever reason, the bank could change your account number. Your money is still there, but for whatever reason, they've changed the bank number. Maybe there was fraud, maybe they changed, the computer broke down, all sorts of sillinesses like that. So they still have your money, and they change your account number from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to 0987654432. Well, the account number we've written doesn't exist anymore. Your will's no longer valid. Or rather, your will's valid, but the property to which it refers doesn't exist. The assets to which it refers doesn't exist, which is why I would say, if your only asset was the bank account, just say all my assets to my beneficiaries. And they would then present the will. If they need to go to probate, they would go to probate. If they don't need probate, they'll present the will to the bank and get the cash.
Thank you, Ade.
Okay,
With
thank you
that-
very much.
with
Does that answer that question?
I think so, thank you.
Over to
What
you,
about-
Leslie.
Thank you. What if the beneficiaries don't want to do what the person has done, has requested in the will? Do the people that
example?
so the people that should be getting some of the payout from the person who wrote the will, and
Yes.
there's a couple of beneficiaries, and they're
Yes.
also going to gain something. So they don't want to share that with the people, the other members, let's call it family. So you've got a family,
Yes.
two of the family are also beneficiaries, and those
Yes.
two beneficiaries decide
Mhm.
that they don't willingly want to sort out the will. They want to
Mhm.
try and keep it between the two of them. Would you just have to take them to court? What would you do about beneficiaries that don't want to play ball when it's time to read the will?
Is this a live case or a hypothetical case?
It's live.
Okay, accept my sympathy.
So maybe you
Ye-
might even want to take it offline, but you could just give a generic answer.
Yes, if you can
Yeah.
come separately.
Yeah.
You have got a great bother there. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be messy. It's going to cause lots of ill will. I have
Yeah.
one such on my desk.
Yes.
The solution to that, which is no comfort just now, the solution to that is to have appointed professional executors at the start.
Right.
I always appoint professional executors, always, because what you're describing here, I think I have been caught out once or twice.
So what's the
I-
difference between the executor? The executor is mutual, is it? They're not in it at all, and the beneficiary stands to benefit. Is that correct?
You're right with the beneficiary. The beneficiary is benefits. That's what they
Yes.
do. The executor executes the provisions
Okay.
of the will, carries out
Okay.
what's in the will. So sell the
Yes.
house and divvy
That's
everything up.
it. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So if some members of the family are being difficult, that's really unfortunate. Anyone who's been in this profession any length of time has encountered such. We all have, and now when I write a will, I have professional executors. I can have lay executors as well. So the lay executor is, maybe you say the beneficiaries should be executors as well, which is all very well, which is fine. But have a professional. Always have a professional.
Okay. Thank you.
So
Thank you, Shirley.
back to this example, it's no comfort at all. But if I'd written that will, whenever it was 30, 40, 50 years ago, I would have appointed a professional executor. And that really came into its own during the lockdowns when nothing happened. And people were saying, where's my money? I said, well, there's a lockdown. Yes, I know. And I put the phone down. I didn't hear from them for 2 months. Where's my money? There's a lockdown. Put the phone down. So you can imagine them ringing a member of the family saying, where's my money? That's a more difficult relationship to have, as opposed to ringing a professional and say, well, there's a lockdown, or there was a house that we couldn't sell. I say, well, if you want to buy the house from me, by all means, buy the house and it'll resolve this issue, or go find me a buyer. Go find me a buyer and you'll get your money. But it sounds a bit high-handed, saying, go find me a buyer, but that's what it comes down to. Having that kind of discussion with a member of the family with whom they're not very friendly, whom they think is trying to cheat them out of some money, say, go find me a buyer and we'll get your money. That's a less easy conversation to have. That's the reason.
But thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll get your details from Shirley.
Of course.
Yeah. Faye has a question. Faye's with me here today.
Ade, when you say professional executor, do you mean a solicitor? Who are you talking about there? What's a professional executor?
A professional executor would be someone like me, would be someone who does it as a matter of practice, not just qualified. So almost all solicitors are, by their training, qualified to do it. But if they don't do it, if they don't have experience in it, there's no value in it. So you need an experienced professional like myself, or some accountants do it, but again, they have to do it. Some conveyancers do it, again, they have to do it as a job. So those are the kind of people who would be professional executors. But try to avoid a local high street solicitor, because they tend not to do enough of it to be experienced enough to do it.
And excuse me, do you have to pay them?
Oh, yes, I'm afraid you have to pay them. You have to pay them. But what you're paying for is sorry, I didn't catch the lady's name earlier. What you're paying for is avoiding the problem of the people, the lay people not knowing what they're doing, because generally they don't. Why should they? It's not their job. That's the one thing. And the second thing is trying to cheat the other beneficiaries. So the fee that you pay the professional is pennies compared to the unfavorable outcome we are trying to avoid, or in essence, in truth, insure against.
Is it a set fee?
Everyone has their own charging structure. Everyone has their own charging structure. Typically, it will be, off the top of my head, between like the cost of selling a house. If you're selling a house through an estate agent, you're paying typically 1 to 2%. So on an estate, if you have a professional, you're paying typically 1 to 2%.
Okay.
So it's roughly like the cost of selling a house.
Thank you, Ade.
Do you deal with power of attorney also?
I deal with power of attorney. All my clients, absolutely all of my clients have power of attorney. If you don't have power of attorney, be sure you're not my client. Do you have a specific question on power of attorney?
Not really. I just want to know if you deal with that also.
Okay.
Yes, I.
Thank you, Ade. So we have LCH have her hands raised, Claudette, and then Sandra. So if we go in that order, Elsie, you're on mute, my lovely. Elsie,
Yes, I'm sorry.
You've got your hands raised as well. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. Can you explain probate again for me, please? You
Okay.
mentioned it earlier.
Okay. Probate. This takes a bit long, but I will. It takes about 2 minutes, but I will do it. Right. As I am now, I have things. I have a car, I have a house, I have a bank account, and all those things. And only I can do those things. Only I can manage those things. Those are the things of my life and my business and my Rolex and everything. And no one can sell my house. No one can go to my bank account because they are all in my name. So when I die, imagine I had Elsie as my executor. I had you as my executor. You look at my will, it says I appoint Elsie as my executor. And the job of the executor is to manage everything, gather everything, sell what needs to be sold, and distribute. That's what the executor does. But when you go to the bank will say you don't have permission. You can't sell the house because you don't have permission. You can't do anything because you don't have permission. So you need to go to the court with my will, with the death certificate, and apply for probate. Probate is merely the permission from the court to then do those things that you were told, sorry, everything's in Ade's name. Well, we know Ade's dead, but you need permission from the court to do these things, to sell the house, to liquidate the bank account, to sell the shares, to sell the car, to sell the business, to do all those things. You need permission from the court. So once you have that permission from the court, it's really an ordinary sheet of A4 paper, simple sheet of A4 paper. Once you get that paper from the court, then you can do all those things. That's what probate is. So probate is just permission from the court for the executor or an administrator to manage the assets of the deceased person and carry out the terms of the will, if there is a will.
Yes,
Ade, thank you.
Sorry, can I carry on a bit further?
Go on, Elsie. Go on.
Yes, I understand that it's better to have, well, actually, I actually heard Martin Lewis on the TV said that it's better to have a power of attorney than to make a will. So what is the thought on that?
He doesn't know what he's talking about. This is my job. It's not his job. He knows plenty of things that I don't. He's an expert in many things, but not this. I know what he means. I know what he means, and it's very involved. But it's not an either or thing. I really know what he means, but that's not good advice.
So
Thanks.
so in natural fact, you have to have a will and you have
Yes.
to have power of attorney.
You
You have to have the two.
You have to.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so
thank
much. Thank
you for
you.
sharing that, Ade. Thank you, Elsie. So it would be Claudette, Sandra, and then LCS. Claudette, you're on mute, my lovely. Sorry, someone needs to turn off their television, please, or just put yourself on mute.
Yeah, I just wanted to share something because I have a will and it was done via a law firm, and that particular
It was
law
done by a law firm. Yes.
a law firm.
Yes. Yes.
And they came, they sat down and we went through it.
Yes.
We had to have it witnessed and things like that.
Yes.
When they moved from one area, say in Streatham, to somewhere maybe in Croydon, they contacted us and we had to go back there to the new office and sign another form. Is that, yeah, because they've moved address.
Oh.
Yes. So I'm just
wondering. Sorry, what's the question? What's the question?
That's one of the things I'm saying, but is that good practice or is it something that is not normally done?
At best, it's wasting the customer's time. At best, it's wasting your time. At worst, there's something fishy going on. I think I know whom that is, but I think I know whom that was. I think I know the name of that company. It's not good practice. At best, it's wasting the customer's time. We all move house every day of the week. We all move office every day of the week, getting the customer to come in to sign a bit of paper. So the question is, what do they make you sign? Because if all they've done is move house, then that's unnecessary. That bears discussion.
Yes, I suppose also because each year we have to pay a kind of a fee towards them keeping.
How, if you don't mind my asking, if you don't mind telling the group, how old are you?
I'm happy to say I'm 65 years young.
Okay, you're 65 years young.
Yes.
So if you live 30 years, multiply 30 by the fee you pay, and you tell me if that, multiply the number of years you've paid the fee plus 30 if you live till 95 and see if that's good value. I'm certain it's not. What you're paying, what, 30 pounds, something like that a year?
Something like that.
Yes, 30 times 50. No, it's terrible value. There are other things you can spend your money on. There are other vital things you can spend your money on. You've just been charged for storage. That's silly. I'm sorry.
So you don't think it's a wise thing to do?
I'm sorry to be so impolite. That's silly. That's taking the customer for a ride. I personally do not charge my clients for storage. That's me. That's my practice. I do not charge for storage. If all you're being charged for is storage, then there are better ways. There are more useful ways to your family to spend that money in this context, in this business. There are other vital things you could be doing with that same money.
What about leaving money to charity? A donation.
Can I come back to you, Elsie? Sandra and Paulette has their hands raised, please, Elsie.
All right, thank you, Eddie.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hello? Sandra, hi.
Hi, I want to know, thank you, Addy. I'd like to know the difference between having a will and having a trust.
Right. There are two related but different things. They are two related but different things. A trust is, a will is easier to define. A will is a document, usually a sheet of paper that says, when I die, distribute my assets to these entities. Not my language, these entities. The entities could be a trust, a charity. There was a question just about charity, any number of individuals, even a company, even the Boy Scouts, even the Cat Home, even my next door neighbor, Jenny, distribute my assets to these entities. That's what a will is. A trust is an artificial entity which typically would offer protections to the assets of an individual. You can have, we all have trusts. We all have had trusts in our lifetime, but we didn't call them trusts because we didn't put that label on them. If you've ever bought a house with somebody, as most of us have, you've had a trust. You've held your share in trust for your co-owner. If you've ever had a pension, you've had a trust. Your pension funds were held in trust for you. And there are trusts all around us. So you can create a trust either in your lifetime or on your death to protect your assets. Most of the trusts that we would be dealing with, especially because of our ages, no, it's not a discrimination thing. It's because most of the things for which we would have had trusts when we were at younger ages, we've finished with. We're now taking our pensions. We don't have life insurance policies. So most of the trusts that we would be dealing with would arise on our deaths. So we would write a will saying, I, Jenny Smith, leave my assets in trust for my children, Janet and John. That's how one way in which a trust will be drafted. So back to the original question, as best I can answer it for now, is a will is a document that says, when I die, distribute my assets to these entities. A trust is a protective structure that protects assets, usually in death, and the protections of the trust are so much worth having that very few of my clients don't have trusts. A trust will reduce inheritance tax down the road. One question I asked at the top of this, very near the top of this, was how many times do you want your family to pay inheritance tax on what you own? The ideal and the answer should be something like at most once, ideally never.
Never, yeah.
And a trust helps us achieve that. A trust also helps us protect say for instance, my mom died and she left me her assets in trust. I'm happily married, but if my wife says, thank you very much, I want to go away, give me half, I'll say, okay, you can have half of what we own, what we built together, but the trust stuff my mom gave me, you ain't smelling.
That's very funny.
Okay.
I like it.
And trust do other things as well. Oh, my bicycle's not here. I ride a bicycle. I know that anyone can be in an accident at any time. The stuff that my mom gave me is in a trust. If perchance I needed means-tested benefits, they'll say, what do you have? I'll say nothing. They'll say, what about what your mom gave me? I'll say, what about it? It's in a trust. Oh, okay, then here are your benefits. The benefits are not much, but I don't want my mom's inheritance to me to go fund social services just because we've not made the simple arrangement of putting her inheritance in trust. So trusts provide lots of protections like that, which a will does not. As important as a will is, and as a good start as a will is, a trust and a will are two different and separate, although intimately related concepts, which I would happily talk to you about separately, because this has been 2 minutes on what a trust is.
Yeah, thank you, Ade. Let's go over to Elsie Sutherland and then to you, Paulette. Elsie?
Yeah, it's just one thing. I listened to some was asking about a power of attorney.
Yes.
We had people on the Zoom before who told us about power of attorney, which is
Yes.
HUK.
Yes.
So a lot of people take up that.
Mhm.
All you do is you're paying them. It's up to you if you want to give them a little what you call
Donation.
you know, when you, yeah, but
Yes.
they don't charge you. You pay
Yes.
something like £186 to install your trust. That's in a sale. So that's how they
Yes.
do this. Another one, and that is storing.
They are a charity. They can
That's what
afford
I'm
to do that.
saying. That's what I'm saying. If we are older people, we need to take up things like that instead of paying other people. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. I have no difficulty with that. But what you pay for is what you get.
Well, that's it. But then, yeah, that's what you give them something because they're charities, as I said. The trust confused me a bit because as far as I knew, they said about trust. If you have over 300, if you put £300,000, suppose you have a house, then they can't touch that £300,000. If it's the government couldn't tax that 300 at all, that income into the account, what they're doing. That's how I understand about the trust. So glad you're telling me the difference now. Thanks.
I think I understand what you're trying to say there, and you're putting 2 or 3 things together, which is fine. I don't mean to be rude about Age Concern. They're a charity.
Yeah.
You get what you pay for.
So what do you mean by that? Could you explain that, please?
So what I mean by you get what you pay for is that they're not going to get me or someone like me to come and spend time with you and go into detail with you for no fee. So what they will tell you will be very, very cursory, very, it will only go into the surface. They're not going to get, again, me to sit down with you to go into your exact detail with you. No, that's not life. That doesn't happen. So what Age Concern might have told you, they might have told you correctly. They might have told you correctly, even though very shallowly. But what your understanding is because they didn't go in depth with you. I can see you're mixing up.
They did. But
Okay.
you got to fit. That's a different application as well.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Shelley.
Thanks, Elsie, for that question. That's wonderful and answering that, Ade. Paula, over to you. And just for the time-wise, we haven't got much time left. We've only got 15 minutes, so I just wanted to do the warning beforehand, just in case. So do ask your questions before the time is ended, please, if you feel like.
Yeah, thanks for that, Shelley. Yeah, Adi, just wanted to find out the person that is allocated to be the power of attorney, could that also be the beneficiary to your will?
Short answer, yes. A longer answer, take time to examine your appointment, but short answer is yes, it can be the same person.
Okay, thank you.
Can you have more than one person power of attorney?
I would always recommend at least 2. At least 2, because if one person can't do it, dies, goes to prison, then you're stuck.
Yeah.
Do you have your hand up, Margarita? Was that a hand up? You're on mute, Margarita. Margarita, you're on mute. We cannot hear you. You're still on mute, Margarita.
I put my hand up then.
Go ahead, Sheila, until Margarita comes off mute.
Could you tell me if what is called the one that gives someone an allowance. Is that still a trust?
That sounds like a trust. That sounds like a
Yeah.
trust.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, because this person is not good with money. So you thought, well, you know, when I die and he got get his share, let it be an allowance he gets.
Yes,
Yes,
that sounds
yes.
like a trust. Yes.
Trust, yeah. Mhm.
So so there are different type of trusts then.
Yes,
There are
they are.
different. There are different types of trust there.
Yes, they are.
What's you've described there sounds like, I wouldn't put money on it, but it sounds like a vulnerable person trust. If
Yeah.
someone's not good with money, either they're on drugs or they just can't
Yeah.
handle money, then that's a
Yeah.
vulnerability. So you have a
Someone
vulnerable
would
person.
trick them and take it from them. Yeah.
From them, yes,
Yes.
it is. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a certain kind of trust. Yes.
Okay. So you do that as well, yeah?
Yes, I would, and that's what I mean by you have a will that's constructed for you. So I would say, who are the people in your life? Tell me about them. And you will say, oh, this person is not very good in money. Oh, no problem. Or this person is, it gets state benefits. So I'm not sure if I want to leave him anything, because if I leave him 1/4 of my house, then that just goes to pay his pay the council, and he wouldn't get his benefits. And when he runs out of money, then he reapplies for his benefits, which to me is a waste of an inheritance. So that kind of thing, we would write your will to accommodate. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case, but it's just an example of the will being suited to the person. So those who go to W.H. Smith to get their will, the only thing I can say is good luck to them.
I wouldn't
because-
do that by just telling you people doing it, but I wouldn't do that.
It is true, yeah.
It's a false economy, but there we go.
Thank you,
Thank
Ade.
you.
Margarita, you had a question before. Now you're off mute.
Yeah, but my question being answered with all the others, just to clarify what I did.
Good. I'm glad to be of service.
So Adi,
Yes.
so from what I gather from your session, it's like, in my mind, it's like a trust and a power of attorney would be the best two things to do instead of doing a will.
That's it. Trust is
It
better.
depends on your circumstances. Depends on your circumstances. I have very, very few clients who don't have power of attorney. Actually, have no clients who don't have power of attorney. I have no clients who don't have trusts, but they all have wills. So even if they come to me saying, I want a will, I say, fine, no problem, you want a will, but tell me what you want to do. And when we go through what they want to do, it will emerge that they all need power of attorney. We all need power of attorney. I've got 40-year-old clients who have power of attorney, so it's not an age thing. We almost all need trusts, and we almost all need wills. So it's a question of constructing a plan to fit an individual. No, there's no off-the-shelf thing. And when any one of us dies, when I die, actually, I'm not a very good example because I don't have children. But say when I die, my power of attorney will die with me. My power of attorney will die with me. Boom, it dies with me. End of story. My will will come to life when I die. They will go to probate, and the will typically would have a life of about 6 to 18 months. That's when they do everything that's in the will. That's when they close the bank account. That's when they sell the house. That's when they answer the stupid questions about this person is dead, show me the will. So when they answer all those questions, then they sell the house and put the house in trust. The trust will last 125 years. That's how long trust lasts. So the power of attorney dies with me on day one with my death certificate. The will comes to life and will will last typically a year, 6 to 18 months, and just falls apart because you don't need it. You don't need it, except if there's a court case. But then the trust would last 125 years.
Yes, see. Mhm.
We need all three. But I can understand why you would say that the power of attorney and the trust are the requirements rather than the will. I can see why you would say that. And occasionally, 1 in 100 times, we don't need a will, but 1 in 100 is nothing to base an observation on.
Thank you, Ade. We have a final question here in the center from Faye, asking if there is a charge to put your house or property in a trust.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. The question is, why do you want to do that? I can think of 2 or 3 good reasons for doing that, which we will talk about if you wanted to do it. So the question is, what do you want to achieve? That's the essential question. And if the answer is a trust, then there is a charge for doing that. Everything is a question of a cost-benefit analysis. How much would it, what would you lose? What would your family lose if it were not in trust versus the few hundreds of thousands it will cost you to put it in a trust?
Interesting. So Ade, if you were to kind of summarize the essence of the conversation today and the questions from all these beautiful ladies and concerns, what would you finalize with, Lisa?
I would say.
Oh, sorry, Ade, before you answer that vital question, Lisa has a quick question, and then we'll come over to you to save that question in your memory.
What advice would you give if, rather than waiting until someone dies, to execute a will?
Sorry, start again. Sorry, I missed the start. Sorry.
Sorry, what advice would you give instead of waiting for someone to sort of like pass away? So if they've got sort of like a house that's you know, £1 million, why give it all to the taxman and to lawyers? What other ways are there? Because that we need to keep as much wealth in our communities as much as possible, rather than paying it out to, you know, fees for this person, that person, who then they are benefiting from that process. So for me,
that question, yes, so yes, sorry, you haven't finished.
For me, it would be about how is it that the generations that are up here are able to pass down to their generation of children or grandchildren, so then they continue because they don't stay in here. We've just had 75 years of the Windrush, 75 years of the NHS. Coincidentally, they need to keep as much money within their families as much.
It's true, yeah.
You have done 2 things. You have just answered the question Shirley asked. You just summarized my job for me. That's what I was starting to say when. So I have never welcomed an interruption more. That's what I was starting to say. That's the essence of my job, and it's more important for, us to look at these things. In 75 years, what have we achieved? Individually, we've done things for our family, but we're letting it leach out. We're letting it go out. We're letting it, it ends up in the hands of the tax people. We all know what they don't waste, they steal. So we can keep these things, we can keep our wealth in our families better. They will do far better things in our families than them being leached from one generation to the next generation to the next generation. Who was that last lady again? Was that Lisa?
That's Lisa, yes.
You can probably do this maths if you're in the room. In 3 generations, you will turn a Rolls Royce into a Mini.
Oh.
Yes. What you've said there turns a Rolls Royce into a Mini in 3 generations. A Rolls Royce, the cheapest Rolls Royce is about £250,000. If you pay inheritance tax on £250,000 3 times, you will end up with £64,000. That's just enough for a Mini, a very flash Mini. But I ask you something, which would you rather have, a very flash Mini or a basic Rolls Royce?
Rolls Royce.
Basic Rolls Royce.
Which would you rather give to your grandchildren, a very flash Mini or the basic Rolls Royce? So the ladies just encapsulated my job and just answered Shelley's question, saying, how has this been for me? The most important thing that I can say to anybody in this room is thank you. Thank you for your attention and thank you for listening. And I hope we all act upon this for our families. If you want my help, I would happily help you. It's not a question of money. If my fees are beyond you, I will point you in the right direction. But these are things that we should be thinking about. What are we working for?
Thank you.
Well, Ade, I just want to say that
Well
you are
done.
a tower of information here today, and we can't thank you enough as the Croydon BME Forum to come on this platform and to give so much vital information to this generation, my generation, and even beyond. We're leaving legacies for our children and grandchildren, right? And so forth. So we can't thank you enough. Everyone, if you do need information from Ade, please reach out to me and I'll send you Ade's contact information that you can have your one-to-one conversations with. But from all of us and the Young at Heart group, we'd like to say a massive thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.